All right. Yeah, I know, Jack. All right. All right. So, welcome back to Jim Bob's Garden. Today we're going to plant potatoes. Now, I don't know if you all remember, or I don't know if you've watched it before, but last time I planted potatoes in here, I had a problem with wireworms. And basically, what wireworms are these little tiny worms that are really hard to see. They're really common in grass because they like to eat grass roots. But what happened was those wireworms ate into my potatoes and left all these little minute holes in the potatoes, as well as worms in my potatoes. Kind of killed off all the crop. Well, I didn't kill it, but made it unusable. So what I did is last year I had planted a bunch of beans in here. I'd read something online about how beans will help get rid of wireworms. So I planted a ton of beans in this particular section right here, and I hopefully have gotten rid of the wireworms. I will tell you that we did have some potatoes growing up to this point, and while this is a very small potato, I'm going to see, maybe you guys can see it. Very tiny potato that grew, one of the red potatoes, but it does not have any evidence right now of wireworms. So that's kind of a hopeful sign. I did plant more potatoes in here. I believe I planted at the beginning of November. This is the only one that really survived, and it's kind of odd. Almost all of them rotted. I'm not really sure why they rotted. It might have been just the temperatures were wrong, whatever the case may be. So I'm going to try and replant back in here, and I will say this is probably not the best spot because I'm not going to get much sun until the sun gets higher in the sky later in the season. But I really want to find out if this wireworm theory works. So we're going to go ahead and plant potatoes. All right, now looking at the seed potatoes, I did go out this time and buy seed potatoes. I had seen that as a recommendation somewhere, so I'm going to go ahead and go with these. And the two varieties I have is a red Norland and a Yukon Gold. All right. So looking at this, it tells you, let's see, what's it say on planting them? I know what I'm going to do, and they're guaranteed to grow. That's all right. It's hard to beat that. Really doesn't say how deep to plant them. Dig a hole to required depth. Yeah, okay. So, bottom line is potatoes are supposed to be one of the easiest things in the world to grow. Dig a hole, throw a potato in it, come back in a couple months and you'll have potatoes. So we're just going to do what I've seen online. There's a couple different methods. One, some people dig a deep hole down to about 6 to 8, even 10 inches deep, and put a potato in it and then let it come back up, and usually it'll break through the soil and do well. Another version I saw online, which is what I'm going to employ here today, is digging a trench essentially 4 to 6 inches deep. Lay your potatoes in it, giving each one a foot and a half of space, and then just cover that back over. And then as the plant grows, what you do is you mound up the dirt around the plant. Now with that in mind, you need to have some dirt on either side to be able to pull up to mound up the plant. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to plant 2 rows. This is a 4-foot stretch right here. So I'm going to plant 2 rows. So they're going to be about, I'm going to have one about a foot off here, and then probably a foot and a half in between, and then another row right there. So about a foot and a half in between and a foot and a half between the plants, plus or minus a few. Keep in mind, potatoes, like I said, they've been grown for years and years and years in just about every climate, in just about every type of soil, and they always seem to do fairly well, except for me last year. So with that in mind, we're going to go ahead and get to work. Now, if you're digging a trench like that, depending on how straight you want your trench, you can stretch a line, but me, I'm just going to kind of eyeball it and just kind of dig a hole. Now, we want it to be about 4 to 6 inches deep, which is about a hand, okay? And then we're going to take that dirt, just pull it to the side. Now this soil I've been working on all year, putting lots and lots of mulch on it. And then I just put in, let's see, I'm going to say in this small area, about a bag of composted cow manure that I bought from the store, which I know if you been keeping an eye on my videos or watching my stuff, I'm kind of cheap, so I really don't like to spend a lot of money on stuff. Not because I can't, it just feels wrong to spend a bunch of money on gardening when you can just buy it from the store if that's the case. You know, it is good to do this because it's more natural. It's a little more eco-friendly, a lot more eco-friendly, but it's also inexpensive. So the idea being that you don't have to spend a lot of money to save a lot of money on groceries. All right, so like I said, we're going to do 2 rows. Well, that was not a very straight row. Maybe I should have used a string. All right. Then we're going to dig another row about here. And like I said, this is the area where I had the problem with wireworms. All right, and that should give me enough room between these two to where I can pull the dirt up onto them. All right. Sounds like I'm breathing hard. I've been going through a cold here recently. Oh, that's interesting. Been kicking my butt. It is that season. All right. Tree roots. Sorry. So like I said, 4 to 6 inches, about a hand deep, should be sufficient. Now I want to find out how many of each I got, because I want to plant some more in another spot. So, 1, we'll do 4 in each row. How about that? All right, so one of the keys to planting potatoes, probably the most important part, is planting them at the right time. You can go to your extension office, you can read up on it, whatever the case may be, but like here in North Florida, January into February is the time to plant potatoes. You want to do it 4 to 6 weeks before the first, well, about 4 weeks before the last frost is the plan. Some of that's going to depend on how deep you plant them. The deeper you plant them, the longer it takes for the sprouts to get to the surface. And what you really don't want is for the newly sprouted potatoes rather, to be frozen off. So I think I'm okay here. Today is like, I think the 18th or 19th of January. I guess I should look that up. Either way, it's almost to the end of January. So I should be looking at a month from now being the end of February and into March, and hopefully we won't get any freezes after that. But this is what the local farmers do, because we actually have potato farms here in Florida. So I'm going to go ahead and do this. It cost me $3 if I'm wrong, and I'll try it again. All right, so again, we're going to plant them about every foot. Now in this particular area, because I've got plenty of space and not a lot of potatoes I'm going to plant, I might spread them a little bit further apart. The more you give it room, the more area there is for the tubers to grow out. If you compact them too much, you may get a lot of plants, but not as many potatoes. So kind of a guesstimate there. So I'm going to go about every 1.5 feet. And when you plant them, you got eyes on potatoes, if you never really looked into this. But the little eyes where the sprouts are coming out, you want to plant those up. That's the plant basically trying to come up, and that's what's going to come up out of the top of the soil. All right, so I'm going to plant 4 of them in here. Again, with the sprouts up. Now, if you want to split your potatoes, you can do that, but you want to have at least 1 eye in each section of potato. And you want to make sure that that eye's got plenty of meat on it. But on this case, I'm just going to go ahead and plant the whole potato. Idea being that it will have more space or more meat around it to help provide nutrients for the plant until it starts to grow up and get some sunlight. All right, so about equidistant there, and that should be good. And then you just simply cover them back over. Put the dirt back on them. Now, like I said, I did put some composted cow manure, and I have been mulching this area very consistently all year round. As a matter of fact, this area was about 2 inches lower prior to the beginning of, at the beginning of last year. And that's how much compost and, organic material I put into it. Like I said, potatoes have been known to grow in just about every known type of soil. Believe it or not, the potato was actually, the development of the potato as a crop was a huge thing when it came about, because prior to that, pretty much the food staple for most of Europe and the civilized world, though I'm not sure about the Orient, which was very civilized at that time. The major food crop was grain and breads. And then potato come along, which is higher in potassium, various other nutrients, and it really improved the overall health of the civilized world and people in general. So it was a huge development, and it's still a major food source even to this day. It's a great way to get some food in your belly. All right, so this is my red ones. Like I said, the red New Orleans. And then I've got some Yukon Golds. Both of these I bought at a local box store here. Now, what variety of potato you plant, that's entirely up to you. They've got all kinds of different varieties. Indeterminate, determinate. Basically what indeterminate and determinate means, determinate is a plant that will grow to a specific size and stop growing. Indeterminate will keep on growing. I do not know, and there's nothing on here, I believe, that says anything about determinate or indeterminate. But I can look them up, and I think the Yukon Gold is an earlier potato, if I'm not mistaken. Now, it doesn't say anything on here. I'll look them up later and give you some more information. I had really good luck around here with the red ones. I'm going to plant 5 over here. Should I just go with 4? No, let's go with... I'll go with 5. But if you're trying to grow, like some of the methods talk about basically you keep on mounding them up and they'll keep on growing. And by doing that, what you do is you can increase your crop. So like in a potato bag or in a structure where you keep building the soil up as you go up, you want the indeterminate type. so it will continue to produce, whereas the indeterminate will stop producing at some point. So if you're going to do the potato bag kind of thing, or anything where you want the potatoes to keep growing and producing more as you go along, you're going to want indeterminate. If you're just trying to grow a crop of potatoes, the determinate variety should be fine. They typically will come to bloom and to fruition, I guess I should say. I'm not sure how to say that. Quicker usually, and but they will only grow to a certain amount of size, and typically will stop growing at that point and only produce a certain amount of potatoes or whatever the crop may be before they stop growing. Just kind of depends on what you want to do. This is all something new to me. I'd never heard of determinate and indeterminate. But this is also the first time I've ever used seed potatoes. What we always did when I was a kid is we would just take potatoes from the last year, the smaller ones, that by this time had started to produce sprouts on them, and we would just plant those in the garden. So whatever variety we had from before is whatever variety we planted. And I think they're mostly the russet potatoes, which grew good in Kansas. Like I said, here it seems to me as though the red ones grow better, but I don't know, we'll see. I also was planting the ones from the store, not seed potatoes, just basically potatoes that I had left over, or picked out of a bag to plant. All right, so there's my potato patch. This is part of that experiment with the wire worms, so hopefully I didn't waste a whole bunch of potatoes. And then we're going to go ahead and plant another patch over here, which I'm going to go ahead and do off camera. And we'll get back to you here in a few weeks, probably about a month, and see where we're at. Hopefully we'll have some sprouting. So that's it. Potatoes are the easiest thing in the world. I was watching one YouTube video, and the guy's asking his grandpa, he says, "Grandpa," he says, "how do you grow potatoes? How are you so successful?" He said, "Man, it's the simplest thing in the world. You dig a hole, you throw a potato in it, you cover it up, and just don't mess with it. That's all there really is to it." But there are some things that will factor in. My advice, if you want to plant potatoes and you want to do it successfully, the biggest, most important factor is going to be when you plant them. You need to plant them at the right time, and then various other things like mulching are important. Making sure the plants stay healthy is important. A lot of different bugs that can get to them and so on. But the key really is just throw them in a hole and let them grow. Just do it at the right time of the year, which apparently in North Florida is this time of the year. I've got that from the county extension, and I also got some information from 2 different books on North Florida gardening. So this is what I'm going to do, and I will let you know how it turns out. All right, once again, thanks for stopping by Jim Bob's Garden. If you got any questions, please feel free to leave a comment. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. And subscribe, like, share it with your friends. If you got suggestions for me, please let me know. Particularly if you're from this area, because like I said before, most of my information is based upon Kansas and gardening I did when I was a kid. All right, 40 some odd years ago. All right, but once again, thanks for stopping by. Come back and see us.